All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, once again from the flight deck, and welcome to another episode of A Pilot's Life with Captain Nabs, live streamed here on Twitch for all to see. It's Saturday morning, so grab your coffee, put down your Saturday paper with its comic strips, because I'm sure you're all still reading a paper on Saturday morning, and let's go hop in the flight deck and let's go have some fun. And as always, I'm going to come to you live with my webcam. There we go. Good morning, everybody, and yes, we're going to be doing it once again. As you can see, we've got the Aerosoft CRJ. This is the 700 booted up. Once again, it's in the American Airlines SkyWest colors. I can get this to turn a little bit. You can see that it is in the American Eagle colors, operated by SkyWest. And this could very well be our last flight for SkyWest. I haven't made up my mind, debating what to do here. And again, it's sort of a lot of it is kind of hinging on PMDG and what they choose to do in the near future. As I hinted at last stream, I really want to take that 737 out right away once it releases, and I'm kind of thinking about holding off on my next stage of my pilot's life career until I can get that 737 in the sim and start working for an operator. So here's today's flight anyways. Here is, it's Chicago to... it's Wichita over to Chicago. Good morning, Squibbly, and I think I saw you there. Where are you? Here, there you are. Yeah, parked in the way again. That's okay. Lots of room to get around you here. This is the this is the FSX Scenery, Wichita. So the company's name is FSX Scenery. As I think I said last stream, they are a charitable company. There's a guy who basically sits at home and he makes sceneries. He doesn't do a fantastic job. I'll be honest. I mean, look at like the way the lamppost obviously passes the buildings. He doesn't do a fantastic job. He doesn't do a half bad job. It's usually better than the default scenery, but the texturing is pretty still fairly generic. But the buildings, he puts a little bit more effort into it than the auto-generated default scenery does. But he also doesn't charge a whole lot, and all the money that he does make goes to benefit a charity. So I'm kind of okay with spending a little bit of money to improve the sim a little bit, knowing that money is actually going to a charity anyways. So it's not the best scenery in the world. It's not the worst scenery in the world. It kind of captures a little bit of the spirit and flavor. This is really kind of like P3D level stuff still, though. At the end of the day, this is kind of what the P3D era scenery would have looked like, and when he was doing it in the P3D era, it looked pretty good. I thought it was pretty reasonable, especially for the price compared to most other P3D sceneries out there. But with MSFS, as I think I said last stream, everyone has to up their game. The sim itself, by default, is so beautiful. Look at the way the sun is just reflecting off the tail, the shadows everywhere. Every object has a shadow, and just the overall quality of the scenery is so much improved in this sim that what cut it in P3D as a pretty decent piece of scenery no longer cuts it, I'm afraid. So, anyways, I don't have regret about spending the money, but I just wish this guy, he does a lot of airports, a lot of smaller airports that otherwise would never get any coverage whatsoever, and you'd be stuck flying to default terminals at all these smaller airports across, especially across North America and throughout a bunch of other places in the world. So if you put a little bit more effort into them, they could be some really great things, and he'd have a great market because he does a whole lot of airports that nobody else does. Anyways, yeah, as I said, yeah, my next, once we finish this leg of A Pilot's Life here, that's it. This season 6 is done. We've done all the flights for SkyWest, and as I said, I think we may go away from SkyWest, and we may try to find a job with another, even more mainline carrier, because I want to operate that 737. As soon as it comes out, I want to be able to take it out with you guys. I'm pretty familiar with the 737, having flown it in PMDG now, or having flown it in P3D now for quite a while, quite a few hours flying it in the P3D world. So I'm fairly comfortable with the 737, but I think it'll be a fun little change and challenge in this sim, and everyone's going to want to fly that thing when it comes out. Of course, the other side of it, hopefully, is that it works. Anyways, enough about that. Well, we can talk about that in flight, but that's sort of our plan. Let me just put this back to the current flight page so it does auto start. But I am going to hopefully try to find a job with one of these other better, not better carriers, but one of these bigger carriers, one that operates 737s. So if I take out Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, and Oceania. Then we are left with just the North American carriers, which is still where I'm kind of targeting. And yeah, I'm sort of going mainstream with this next one. So I'm thinking along the lines of American. Why can't I find American even on here? Air Canada Express. Oh, because it's, yeah. Alaska. There it is. American Airlines. So, you know, American Airlines, Delta, like all the mainstream carriers operate 737s. I welcome any other suggestions. Someone suggested WestJet, and the only reason I would say not WestJet or even Air Canada, because they operate the Maxes now. The only reason I'd say not those two is because I think Canadian scenery still has a lot to be developed in MSFS, especially without Toronto as a hub. Toronto is the biggest hub in the nation, and it's still not modeled in MSFS. So until that comes out, steering away from the Canadian carriers, only because I just don't think the scenery is good enough to be worth streaming. The Toronto scenery is really just abysmal. Malix HD, good morning. Yeah, grab a cup of coffee. I'm going to get this flight started here so that we can get underway. My scheduled departure time, I got my self-loading cargo here, and what I scheduled here on ZimBrief is 15:10, is 10 minutes after 10 o'clock in my local time anyway, so in about 30 minutes from now. So that's enough time to get it going, but we really do need to not dilly-dally too long in here. And I was just looking at the EFB there setting up, so let me just enjoy my coffee. Mute my mic without forgetting to unmute it this week. Maybe it's just me, but I just look a little bit dark there, I think. I'm just going to try and just play with the webcam settings for just a second here, because I just think I look a little bit dark. There, that's a little better. Alright, just 1 second while I grab my Track IR hat. Alright, and this time I'm not going to forget to unmute. The one thing I notice now is that I've got a little tiny bit of you know what I can do? Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out why I have a spot right over here. Oh, I know why I have a bright spot over there. Because there's actually sunlight coming through behind my green screen. Give me 1 second, guys, and I will be right back. Because I noticed that on my last stream, was that there was a tiny little spot in the corner. It was this corner, the whole stream, just a little spot where just a little bit too bright a light caught the green screen, and so it was a different color, and so it wasn't chrome keyed out. So I was kind of paying attention to that, so I noticed that there was a little spot right there, but now it's gone. And now all that was actually the sun coming in and hitting the wall behind me. So because my screen it's fabric, it's a cloth screen, and it's not 100% opaque. You can see through it very slightly, and the sun was bright enough behind it that you could actually see it through there. So anyways, without further ado, let's get this party started here. Oh, hold on a second. Let me just try and get my seat comfortable here. There we go. And get my Track IR going here, and let's get this checklist underway here. So safety checklist, circuit breakers. There are a lot of circuit breakers in this aircraft. Check them all, make sure none of them have popped out. Nose wheel steering switch is off. Hydraulic pumps are all off. Landing gear lever is down. Flight spoiler lever is retracted. Slat flap lever is set to 0. Radar is off. Just gotta move the armrest out of the way. ADG manual release is stowed, and the emergency flap switch is in the normal position. There it is. And then battery master on. Alright, battery master's on. We got the screens coming up, and we got the APU available, so we're going to go ahead and, or sorry, not the APU, the GPU available, so we're going to go ahead and turn that on. AC electrics are now on. IRSs, flip them over to nav, so they're ready to go. Emergency equipment, we'll say, is checked. We got a fire extinguisher, we got a crash axe, we got emergency flashlights. We should have an escape rope over there for getting out the emergency hatch. There should be life preservers behind our seats. And usually there's a, yeah, right there, personal protective breathing equipment, PBE. Gear and safety pins, we'll say we've checked and they're on board. Airplane documents, check the maintenance status. Hey, look, everything works on this airplane because nothing breaks in an Aerosoft CRJ, which is good and bad. Hydraulic pump 3A on, and FMS initialization complete. So let's get the FMS all started here. And that's one of the things that I miss about the PMDG stuff is that, of course, with the PMDG stuff, you can break stuff. And I think you made that point in the last stream about not having. What am I trying to say here? Not having having something fail on stream. Unfortunately, it's just not really feasible in the CRJ. Nothing really breaks in it, and that's not reality. That's just simply the way Aerosoft designed this sim. Is that it's designed to be flown as a day-to-day, but without necessarily any failures modeled. So it's a little bit unfortunate, just because the failures definitely add some interest. And then when we fail things in the 737 or in the Dash 8, we definitely had some interest there. But anywho. Beggars can't be choosers. We have a decent airplane, a decent jet to fly. It's not a default airplane anymore, so you know, we take what we can get in this sim right now, and it's slowly getting better. Somebody made the comment to me the other day, maybe it was last week, that sim probably needs about 2 years still, and I would definitely say that they're in the right ballpark. Definitely needs a couple of years before it's really truly ready. One thing I just realized as I'm sitting here is that I did not put the nav lights on, which as soon as the battery goes on, those should be on. Let's just check the emergency lights, because for some reason it's not on our checklist, and then that's good. And then we can go ahead and hop into the FMS. There we go. And the other thing I've got, of course, as always, running is my self-loading cargo, CRJ 700. I was doing a flight under the Air Canada banner, but now we're on an American Airlines banner, so we'll do that sound pack. There's the flight number, the altitude, everything is set. So let's go ahead and start the flight. Give it a couple seconds to think about it. And because we've already got the door open in the jet bridge, I can tell the cabin crew that they're ready to board anytime they want. And then we can hop in and get to work in my trusty FMS on my tablet, which I do enjoy. So grab the GNSS position, previous page, set the position so that it knows where to initialize, go into flight plan, and let's put in our routing here. And for those that didn't see it, Squibbly put it in the Discord. You can also, he'll also probably drop it into the channel here. If he's got a second, he may be busy setting up as well, but it's a fairly simple flight as well today. It's not a long flight, it's about an hour and 30 minutes, I believe, so not a long flight. Let's see here, the alternate for today was Detroit, KDTW, alternate. And the flight number today is SkyWest 3115, which sounds suspiciously like yesterday or last week's flight. I think that was the same flight number, which is fine. Sometimes that's the way some airlines do it. They'll have the same flight number for multiple legs. Some airlines will they'll increment the flight number by 1 for like the reciprocal leg. So 3114 to go down to Wichita, 3115 to come back, or something like that. So not sure SkyWest naming convention. Frankly, doesn't matter too much to me. All right, so let's depart, and let's see what's the weather doing. And you put it. No, let's see here. Let me just type it in here, KICT, and if I can even get the METAR going anyways in there. I wonder if they have an ATIS. I have an app on my phone that actually lets me see an ATIS at various airports around America. So let's see if I have an ATIS for Wichita. Nope. ICT we do not have an ATIS for. So there we go. So the wind's 230 at 4, and that would seem to indicate a 19 right or left departure. So I'll just pull up my Navigraph charts really quickly here, have a quick look, and I'm just going to move self-loading cargo just out of the way for a second. Come on, think about it. Yeah, so we'll say 19 right for departure, I think, today. Yeah, let's go with that. Alright. I really need like a mount for my tablet, like right about here. Right, just a little bit below. Where are you here? There, just a little bit below, just to get the, just to really kind of put it in the right spot for an FMS. All right, so departing 19 right. There is no SID, so we're just going to go directly into the routing. Again, Squibbly posted that in the Discord, and we're just going to copy and post it right here in the chat as well, really quick. So for anyone who wants to follow along, there we go. That's what I'm trying to do. There's the routing that's been planned. It is the first route on SimBrief. It's a pretty direct route as far as routes go. Peebo, Gossel, MCI, MCI, and Jet 26 to IRK. And these are all VORs I am not familiar with. IRK, and then from there we do the arrival. And Chicago definitely has an ATIS up in my digital ATIS because I was using it yesterday. Looks like today Chicago's landing west. ILS 28 center, 27 right. So I'm going to say for us from this direction, 28 center. Depart again, then arrive at KORD. So we're looking for ILS 28 center. We'll do it via Vogler. The Benki 6 arrival via IRK. Alright, and that should be the whole flight plan in there. I'm going to execute that, and then I'm going to go check the legs page.
Okay, great. We're almost done.
Because I find we do often get a very, we have 21 pages. I don't know what's been going on with this CRJ FMS lately. I don't know if I'm not doing it the right way, but we end up with the same fixes being repeated over and over again. It puts the approach in like 4 times. There's Vogler again. There's Vogler again. Alright, it seems like Vogler. Alright. Giorgio seems to be in here like 3 times at least. I've just removed half the pages. Execute. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up this. I don't know what's been going on with this FMS. I guess you guys can't see the FMS too well behind this, so let me just see if I can just move that. There we go. But yeah, I don't know what's been going on with the FMS in this airplane. That's one of the few complaints I have. It works well once you get a program, but for some reason when you're setting up departures and arrivals, I find it tends to copy like the approach in there like 3 or 4 times. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or what the deal is, but let's just check the Benki 6 RNAV arrival and see what it says. So yeah, Tone, Monks, Giorgio, Peta, Ashton. So we're going to work our way backwards. So there's the approach from Vogler. So Tony, Monks, Giorgio, Peta, Austin, Newark, and then before Newark should come Benki, Bylaw, Beeford, yeah, Kirksville, there's the VOR, so Newark, Benki, for some reason there's 2 Benkis in here, so I'm going to delete one of them, Benki, Bylaw, Beeford, Riley, Drams, Keokuk, Lomi, and IRK, and then we're going to move that IRK up there. And then we don't have any repeated waypoints. We got the whole thing in there. Execute. It just and it used to work. I found more reliably, and I don't know what's going on. I did not change my sound. I don't know why I'm coming in better, honestly. Same old headset. This is not the best headset I own. This is the one that's hooked up to this computer, which is not the great one. But no, I don't know why my sound's coming in better. Same old room. I'm not sure. But I'm glad it's coming in better. Okay, where was I here? Okay, yeah, so we finished with the routing anyways. That all finally came in. So let's do per 44 degrees for a flex temp because it's a nice day. We don't need to worry about... did that not go in? 40 degrees for a flex temp. Okay, let's do that. Let's do the perf init page, and let's... we'll just do it the easy way here. So stand by. We're just going to go look around here really quick. And I've already actually set this all up on the performance page. We have 70 people today. I've got 995 pounds of cargo. The only thing I didn't do, I'm going to set the payload in the simulator. The only thing I didn't do yet is fuel the aircraft. And let's just have a quick look at my sim brief. And it's calling for about 11.3 of fuel. So not a huge increase over what we've already got in the airplane, and I swear, like, SimBrief way overplans it. Although, I will say this, I did upgrade to the 900 the other day, and it seemed to be a lot better. It seemed to be, when I arrived at the destination, the fuel that remained in the tanks is a lot more reasonable. Here I find I always have like 5,000 or 6,000 pounds left in the tank when we arrive, and it's way more than I planned on. Not so much in the 900. The 900 seemed to burn a more accurate amount of fuel. So we're fueling. We're looking for 11.3, and I'm not going to copy that perf init page 1 just yet until that fuel is done, because then I can just copy all of it in one go, but I can set those speeds. All right, coming down here really quickly. So we'll skip page... Actually, no, we don't have to skip page 1 for now, because we can do a couple other things. We can do our cruise altitude, which is going to be 370, so I'm going to go back to my tablet because it's just easier. 37,000 feet, and my SimBrief flight plan for the alternate of Detroit says we should go all the way to 39,000 feet to go to Detroit, which is only a, what is it here, 300-mile flight? 39,000 feet seems like it's a little excessive, but anywho. Alright, now I can see on the MFD there that the fueling is done. So we're going to go ahead and copy all of that. Actually, sorry, we're going to init the fuel from the aircraft first, and then we're going to copy all that to the perf init page. It just saves me typing in a whole bunch of stuff. You guys don't want to see me type stuff, you want to see me fly, so let's do that. Quick performance data here. ISA today we're looking at -1, 326 at 66. 326 at 66, and we got -1. And I hear a lot of beeping, so been loading in for 40 minutes. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm just going to change this because I know people don't want to hear that on that computer, but what I will do is I'll pop my Discord up on my second computer where you won't hear the audio from it, but I'll still be able to read any messages that someone sends. I had that problem this morning too, though. My computer, for some reason, reloading the CRJ, it took about 15 minutes to load the CRJ this morning. Fortunately, I started early. I do my best. Like, I generally try to start loading up the sim and loading up my computer about 30 minutes before I start the stream, because I find sometimes that's what it takes to load up this simulator, to load up this aircraft, and get all the other settings I have. Get my stream software running, get the flight trackers running, everything. Putting all that together, yeah, I find it takes me almost 30 minutes of prep work just to get this stuff done. Alright, all that perf init stuff is done, so we're going to execute that. So, yeah, I find it... I allow myself about 30 minutes to set up for a stream. If I'm not sitting at the computer 30 minutes prior to the stream, I probably won't be ready to start on time. That's what I found. And this sim is probably one of the biggest things. It's like loading this sim, and especially this particular aircraft, boy, does it take a long time sometimes. Now, I'm not sure if there was a reason for that, because this past week I bought the CRJ. Alright, let's see if I can do this just a little bit more natural here. There we go. This week I bought the CRJ expansion pack, the 900 and the 1000, so I installed that, and I believe it basically overwrites everything. It's basically a one installer that overwrites everything. See, I'm way too high. I'm just trying to find like a nice position for track higher. There we go, that's better. So I wonder if that was the reason why the CRJ 700 took so long to load, was even though I had not technically even though I had it before, it was a new install because it had overwritten everything with this new package. That's my thought anyways, because it seemed to take a long time to get that to run. Alright, let's just do the overhead panel quickly here. Service bus is off. Battery master's on, the AC power's on. We've got generators are all on auto. Fire detection monitor. We really don't need to do this today because we're going to say this is a kind of a turnaround from last week, so it's just a quick turn. No need to redo everything, but just a quick flow through the overhead panel and make sure everything is still set up normal auto. We can start the APU while we're sitting here. The door is going to open there. We're just going to check the hydraulics really quickly here, so this should turn that to off. And if I pull up the hydraulics panel, everything is pressurized when the pumps are all on. Let's go to auto. And everything should lose pressure for now. Yep, pressures are all falling into the orange. But if I turn on pump 3A, then we're back to normal on that. Alright, and it says that the APU door is open, so we can go ahead and press the start button for that. There it goes. And cabin pressure, or cabin landing elevation, we're looking for about, what is it, 650 I believe in Chicago, 650-ish, so it's a little bit high, 740. 620, I'll go with 640, 660, should be good. Packs on. Recirc fan on. Windshield heat started heating up. And lights we don't need. Fueling is done, so we can go ahead and turn on that. And let's just shut down the fueling panel here as well while I'm thinking about it. Alright, the APU starting, good stuff. Passenger doors, pressures, it's fine. Nose wheel steering's off, the wiper's off. Let's see here. Altimeter, I guess we need that. 3015. Alright, sounds like the APU is up and running. We got our nav source set to FMS. Our speeds are already all put in normal. Everything is looking good on the PFD. Don't need to check the CVR every flight, just the first flight of the day. Takeoff. Let's again pull up Navigraph here just to get the heading here. Silly me. Alright, we'll come back to the Chicago stuff. I should have tagged up my chart here. I have no SID charts for Wichita. Alright. The heading for 19 right is 196, so let's set that. Oops. Uh, 196. Alright, 196 on the heading. Altitude 10,000. Sounds good to me. I got nobody to tell me anything different. Probably would be more like 5,000 here in Wichita, but something along those lines anyways. And, yeah, otherwise it looks good. What we can always do as well here... There's usually a way to step through these, but I don't know what it is in this aircraft. Anyways, we'll just stick to that for now. I was just going to try and step through the flight plan, because last time we did a flight, we had an errant waypoint, so I was going to double check the waypoints, but it doesn't look like we... If there's a way to do it, I don't know what it is. Maybe someone else can help me out here.
Here, blocking away on Charlie 3, no pushback, and go ahead and start the engine.
Alright.
Charlie 3, Wichita traffic.
And I hear you starting up, which is good, so we're going to get going here as well in a minute here. Just check all the lights. Everything is on. And... Alright, so... Speed brake levers closed, the thrust levers are at cutoff, and the flaps are at 0. We've got Unicom up. The only thing I always like to change the TCAS to relative, because that's how most airlines seem to operate it. I find it weird that we default to something different in this sim. Stab trim on, mock trim on, yaw damper on. All the screen setups are normal. IRSs are in nav. And we should also be checking the trims before we go here. And the best way to do that is actually to pop this screen out really quickly here. And then you can kind of see the trims moving as you're doing it. Because you'd put your finger, in the real world, you put your fingers on it and then look at the screen. But it's kind of hard to kind of do that when you're touching everything with the mouse pointer here. So, and everything else is in the normal position, normal. Alright, I think we are all good to go. We just need to do a quick little departure briefing. So the emergency as previously briefed on the last leg, the engine failure procedure out of Wichita. It's pretty straightforward. It's going to be let's see here. I'm just going to go back to this for a second here. It's going to just be runway heading, and we're going to climb up to at least 1,000 feet above the field elevation, 1,400 feet before we retract the flaps. Otherwise, I'm just trying to find a nice, again, if I reset my track higher too often, I lose my good positioning. There is no SID, so we're just going to climb on runway heading 196, sorry, 193, no, it was 196, wasn't it? I thought I said 196. Yeah, heading 196 until we get to 10,000, or at least till we get to 3,000 feet above the ground, then we'll turn. Why am I not? There we go. Yeah, we'll call it climb at least 3,000 feet above the ground before we make any turns. What's the MSA around here anyways? Let's find an approach chart. Just find an MSA. Sector altitude 4,000. So let's go with that. Let's go with 4,000 feet before we make a turn on course. And yeah, we're just going to turn direct on course. We got no ATC and we've got no SID. So it's going to be very straightforward. Terrain is 4,000 feet, clears everything. The weather appears to be very sunny and bright and clear here in Wichita. Cold, -7, but otherwise it's nice. Operational, nothing's broken on the aircraft, and NOTAMs. I'm just going to have a really quick look through the NOTAM file here, just to see if there's anything major affecting departures or runways. And there's about 6 NOTAMs, mostly affecting a couple of the RNAV approaches. ILS, DME, unserviceable. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Nothing affecting our departure, so that's all I've got. Let's do before start checklist. Passenger signs panel is on. Landing elevation, 660 set. Altimeters, we've got 3015, and we're showing 1,350 feet. FMSs are checked and set. The IRSs are aligned and nav. And the radios and nav aids, we got Unicom up. We got 2,000 on the transponder. They're all set. Takeoff briefing is complete. The before start checklist is complete. We're just about ready to go here. So I'm just going to try this today here. Actually, let's do this. Okay, so we do have the APU is up. Yep. Alright. Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight tech.
We will be ready in a minute.
Roger.
So that'll take the bridge off and call the tug up. And that should hopefully also remove my... No, that doesn't remove my ground power, because the ground power is connected by the CRJ. And they haven't yet, but now we're doing it. I'm also going to remove the chocks right now.
Captain, the cabin is secure. All passengers are aboard.
One of those sounds is from self-loading cargo. One of them is from the CRJ. That's why I have 2 different flight attendants. Alright, so he's getting the tug in position. And I think we're just about ready to go here. So, let's see, I've got my flight tracker turned on. Yeah, let's do clear to start check. So personal electronic devices, we're going to say they're off for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the aircraft this morning. My name's Steve. I'm your pilot today, along with First Officer David and your senior flight attendant, Alana. She, along with the rest of the crew, will be making our way around the cabin, making sure you're comfortable and...
Hopefully that's not too loud for you guys. Alright, APU is on. Electrics are...
we've just heard the guys on the ground have finished loading the final bits of luggage into the aircraft, so we should be on the way very shortly.
And takeoff data, we've got
if you could help the cabin crew by
set,
getting yourselves
doors,
with seatbelts fastened, that would be fantastic. Once we're airborne, we'll be starting
closed and locked,
but for now, I'd like to
beacon
thank you for
on,
joining us today, and
fuel
I hope you
pumps
enjoy the flight. Thank you.
on, hydraulic pumps, auto on, parking brake to go, transponder on. And that should just check my V-pilot. That did not work for some reason. Why did that not work? It went back to standby for some reason. There we go. Now it's on. All right. Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight deck.
We are ready for pushback. We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
All right, everything seems to be good, so we're going to go ahead and get the brakes off. Chocks are off as well, yep. Brakes are released.
Pushing back.
Honk honk, and away we go. And the thing I love about Pushback Express is just that I can turn while we're pushing, so I can really control the pushback. Are we clear to start engine 1? Can we start engine 1? Are we clear to start engine 1?
You are clear to start engine 1.
Starting engine 1. Alright, so we got some N2 rotation. I'm just going to switch to the external view for a second just to sort of see how this pushback's going here. May have started the turn too early, so we'll just straighten it out again and fix it again in a second here. Looking for 20%. There it is. Kind of doing two things at once here. Normally the ground crew, of course, would be a separate person focused on this, but I'm trying to push and monitor the engine start at the same time. But here we go. Yeah, I think this will work out just fine.
Hi, Captain. The cabin is secured. All doors cross-checked. We're ready to go.
Okay, thank you.
Stop, pushback.
Pushback complete. Set parking brakes, please.
Brakes are set.
Roger. Okay, the tow bar is disconnected and the equipment
Normal
is
start
clear.
on 1. Starting engine 2. There goes the tug. Everything's looking good. We got rotation N2 there. I did figure out what was going on with Pushback Express. The one thing about it is that, of course, that they do regular updates. FS2 Crew is great for regularly updating their software. However, when they do a regular update, it's often a full install of the software again. So what happened was just that my push-to-talk button was cleared out. So as soon as your push-to-talk button is cleared out in the settings, then it defaults to listening all the time instead of waiting for a push-to-talk, which is what had happened. So now that I've set up a push-to-talk again, now I can get Pushback Express to work properly. I can do the voice commands when I'm holding the push-to-talk, but it doesn't constantly listen to everything I'm saying and shut itself down when I just talk on stream here. So it really works well, because the nice thing is that it actually does shut itself down. When you do that final command, when you say revert to hand signals. So watch this. So if I bring this over here, here's the Pushback Express screen. And you can disconnect and go to hand signals. You can disconnect and go to hand signals. You can disconnect and go to hand signals.
Thanks. Have a good flight. See you
And
later.
what happens is it shuts itself down. It actually, the program closes itself once the tug is away when you give that final command. So it's not even running anymore once you finish everything, which is just a neat little feature. So it's just not taking up your resources, taking up any real estate on your desktop if you have it as like an always on top kind of thing. So I like it. I like it a lot. It's a lot of smart stuff there in Pushback Express once you get it working. And having airplanes like this, it was a little gimmicky and unnecessary, I thought, with the default aircraft, but this aircraft really benefits well from having that Pushback Express. So let's make sure everything is on here. Generators are on. We're going to go ahead and start shutting down the APU. We're going to get the probe heat on. We're going to get the thrust reversers on. We're going to set the flap to 8, and we're going to go ahead and turn on the no steal steering, and then we're going to do the after start checklist. So generators are auto. Electrics are, let's see here, pull up the electrics page, just make sure everything came up. Yeah, electrics are on. Bleed valves are auto. I keep losing myself here. Packs are on. APU is going off. It is in fact, status page, off, but the door is open, so we can close it now that everything's shut down and the door will close. Anti-ice is off today, and nose wheel steering is armed. The after start checklist is complete, and I think for the first time I'm ready to taxi before you are. We'll blame your sim loading. And I think I got enough room to get out past you, so we're going to do that. Wichita traffic, SkyWest 3115 is at the terminal. We'll be taxiing for departure runway 19 right. So it looks like we got just enough room to get out beside you there, and then we'll head down that taxiway there. I don't even know what the taxiway is.
Wichita traffic, 222. We're ready for taxi 19 right. We'll follow the
SkyWest.
in front of us.
Alright, so we're going to go out Charlie 2, Charlie, and Delta Delta 1 to get to 19 right here. Didn't need to double tap it, just tap it once. Just going to wait a second because I'm a courteous person, because I'm aimed right at you. I'm not going to turn that taxi light on yet. And then, of course, there's the bus that wants to get in the way here. Okay, so now that I'm no longer aimed at you, we'll get the taxi lights on. It's just a common courtesy thing when you're facing another aircraft, you generally turn your taxi light off just to keep from blinding people, especially at nighttime, not so much during the day. I wonder if I just kind of hang a left here if I can get around this bus, because it seems like he wants to come in the ramp pretty badly. There's one thing about these ground vehicles is it's kind of a smart thing that they stop when you're nearby. There he goes. Kind of a smart thing. Not always, though. Because they're on the taxiways entirely too much. That's what I mean. But they do tend to stop when you're nearby so that they don't cut you off, which is kind of nice. More than can be said, I think, for a lot of the P3D era ground traffic. So take what you can get in this world. While we're taxiing, let's just check. I was not on the right page. Think about it. Think about it. Start the flight. Please position your aircraft at ICT. We're at ICT. It's probably because I don't have the parking brake set. So let me just stop for a second and just set the parking brake. There we go. Have a nice flight. End flight button is up, so now we are recording the pilot's life career here too. I keep forgetting to do that. I keep forgetting to switch back. If you're on the current flight page, it automatically tracks. If you're on any other page, it doesn't start the tracking automatically. Alright, so the next right turn onto Delta, parallel the runway, and off to the departure end. And away we go. One thing I was going to do before I started the stream, and I just forgot to do it, was I was going to send out a little message on my YouTube channel as well, just to see if anybody wants to come and watch the stream. How fast can I do that without taxiing off? So if I do this, if I freeze my track IR, I can see what I'm doing, and I can go onto my YouTube on my other device here really quickly. Try to post something in the channel and just invite people to watch. Because the viewership numbers are down a little bit today over what they were last week, but I think last week was such a huge celebration of getting back into this thing here. So, all right. Let me just do this really quickly, because nothing like taxiing and typing. How are we doing? We're almost there. I'm going to do the taxi checklist in a second. Let me just send that out. Alright. And there we go. So now I can do the taxi checklist, because we're almost at the runway already. Did not take me long. Where's the taxi checklist? Taxi checklist. Slat flaps. We've got 8 set. And what did I not do today? Didn't do the flight control check before we left the ramp. So flight controls. You can see it in the corner there. Elevators. Ailerons. And then, really quickly, rudder. What would be really great is if Aerosoft could connect that steering wheel switch, because what pilots would do as a cheat is they would turn off the nose wheel steering for a couple seconds, let the airplane keep rolling straight ahead, just while they remove the rudder, and then turn it right back on again. Alright, flight controls are checked. Trims, we've got 7.5 green, and where am I here? Thrust reversers are armed, flight instruments are checked, and brake temps are checked. The before takeoff checklist is, or sorry, the taxi check is complete. And might as well go straight into the before takeoff checklist. Of course, what I did was I stopped the CRJ, and the CRJ is an airplane you have to keep it rolling. Because the engines are so far back, it doesn't turn well at low speed. It tends to just sort of stall out in the turns, as you will. Wichita traffic, SkyWest 3115 is take position runway 19 right for departure. It'll be a left turn out towards Chicago. Alright, so let's get the strobe on. Yeah, because of the position of the engines on this aircraft, it does not turn particularly well. They're very close to the fuselage, so it tends to generate a lot of forward thrust, but not really, once you crank the nose wheel around, it really does not work well. So you really have to kind of carry some speed into any turn, and then go from that, and yeah, carry the speed into the turn and then turn, so that way you're not kind of struggling to keep going, put the power up in the turn, because the power does not add much when you're turning, unfortunately, because the airplane's fuselage at the rear end is trying to move sideways. Alright, before takeoff checklist. Alright, we're going to put the lights on as well. The lights and strobes are on. Fuel cross flow is going to manual. Flight attendants are advised. I just did that. Transponder is TCAS is on. Radar terrain display set and the CAS. Takeoff config okay. Yep. That's CAS. Messages are all normal. The before takeoff checklist is complete. Lights are on, ready to go.
22, behind the departing traffic, line up and wait 19 right behind.
Toga. She's a heavy beast today. Checked. V1, rotate. She just leapt into the sky there. Gear up. Alright, heading mode. Climb power set, speed, autopilot, speed going to 220. I remember I used to think that the departure on this was really busy, but I've gotten the hang of it. I definitely don't feel like it's too busy anymore, but I used to. Alright, flaps 1. Flaps up. Alright, there's the speed 220. We're looking for 4,000 and then we'll turn. I guess it's almost a right turn out, isn't it? It is a right turn out, okay. Well, whatever. And here goes 4,000. And nav. There it goes. Wichita traffic, SkyWest 3115 is in the right turn out towards Chicago. Alright, and the after takeoff checklist, or the climb check as it's called in this aircraft. Climb check. Fuel cross flow is auto. Bleeds and APUs.
Traffic, Delta 220.
Bleeds are normal, APU is off.
Holding for takeoff runway 19.
Thrust reversers off. CAS checked. And that climb check is complete. We'll just wait till we're turned around and facing the correct direction before we start accelerating anymore. So we kind of accelerate to that sort of minimal clean speed, a little bit of a margin above the minimum flap speed, but around 210, 220 knots till we get turned on course, because there's no point in climbing at a higher speed until you're at least a little bit close to being on course. So now we're kind of getting towards on course now. We'll start to pitch down for 250 knots. Try and stay ahead of Squibbly there. There's 250 knots now set on the speed, and we got no ATC still, unfortunately, so we're just going to go ahead and set our cruise altitude of 37, was it? Honestly, I already forgot. Where's my sim brief here? Pretty sure it was 37. Yes, 37 it is, so 37 it will be. I imagine at this part of the world you get a pretty quick climb to 37 anyways. There's not a whole lot of airports. It's not busy airspace like New York or anything like that. So let's go ahead and center that heading bug now. Now that we're on course, and there we go. We are on our way for this final leg of a pilot's life. If I just do this, then there we go. Nice view of the Wichita airport there. There you go. Just departing. There we go. Heading off in the other direction. I'm just going to take myself away for a second here, only because I just like to get some screenshots of the aircraft flying without me in them, just to put on the title card. I'm just trying to get some nice screenshots there. You can see the slight change in tone of scenery around this airport. So yeah, the developer obviously put his own ground textures on there for a little ways around the airport, but I mean it's noticeable, but it's a similar level of detail. A slightly different tone of color, but a very similar level of detail, so you don't really notice the boundary so much. And some of the P3Ds ones you notice because like you go from this generic kind of default scenery to a much more detailed ground texture, and that was always very obvious to kind of look at. So not bad though. Like from a distance, that airport looks pretty good. You got a little closer, the texture's not. Alright, we're well through 10,000, so let's do, first of all, we're just sitting there sightseeing for way too long. Let's accelerate to our high-speed climb here, 290. And we're going to get the landing lights off. It looks like a beautiful day, so the seatbelts can come off. Check the cabin pressurization system. We got a differential of 4.6. The cabin's climbing at 500 feet per minute. That's pretty good. And yeah, that's it. In the real world, we'd also, at this point, put guard on number 2. So normally you kind of have the company station or something up on number 2 until you're away from the station. So usually 10,000 feet is the point where we would set guard frequency 21.5, and we'd always be listening out on guard just in case anything happens either. And the purpose of the guard, the lip monitoring the guard frequency is twofold. Let me just get myself up there again. Yeah, the purpose of monitoring the guard frequency is twofold. The first thing is, of course, if you miss a frequency change or ATC does not give you a frequency change in time and you fly out of range of one particular controller, every controller is listening and able to broadcast on guard so they can try and get a hold of you on that frequency. So it's sort of like it's a party line where anybody who gets lost, if everybody's listening on that frequency, you can reestablish communication with the correct frequency. The other purpose for it being, of course, also monitoring for potentially any ELT signals, emergency locator transmitter signals, which broadcast on the 21.5 guard frequency. That being said, nowadays we've actually moved on from that. That is kind of an antiquated idea. Most emergency transmitters nowadays operate at different frequencies and are monitored by satellites instead of just by other aircraft flying over. So it's a bit of a throwback to the old days. Alright, there's transition set standard. But nevertheless, we still do it because it also, the guard frequency really works for getting a hold of aircraft that either the handoff got missed either by the controller or the pilots missed the handoff. It can happen either way. Everybody gets busy, everybody gets distracted in this business, so it's nobody's fault. But it's a nice little backup system that gets you still going towards the right frequency if you ever get lost. All right, but there we go. We've got the last leg of season 6 underway, and yeah, on our climb out through 20,000 feet. And I'm just trying to think about what I had to talk about this week, because we don't have a particularly long flight today. It's it's about an hour and a bit. Let's see here, what's it estimating now? Let's have a quick look at the prog page here. An hour and 37, and pretty much, you know, within 15 to 20 minutes of leveling off, we're already planning the arrival into Chicago, so it doesn't give us a whole lot of time to chat. That being said, there's not a whole lot of news out there in the flight sim world this week, but there are a few things of interest. I think it is later today, VATSIM is going to announce the launch date for Velocity. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, or what Velocity is, Velocity is basically a major improvement to the back end of how VATSIM runs. The biggest and most noticeable improvement that most users are going to see is a much better update rate of aircraft across the network. So basically right now, with the current existing VATSIM system, VATSIM sends out information about all the aircraft within range of you. So we're connected to VATSIM right now using the vPilot client. So as it's talking to VATSIM, every 5 seconds it gets an update on the location of all the aircraft near us. So if I type in the aircraft, right now there's only 2 aircraft near us, considered to be even within range that VATSIM is even sending us information about them. So VATSIM has like a defined range. There's no point in sending us information about airplanes that are halfway around the world. So VATSIM has a defined range around you. It only sends you aircraft within that range. So we have 2 aircraft that are currently considered within range that VATSIM is sending us information, and vPilot has also additionally screened them out and said that this one at 67 miles away is way too far away to bother drawing in the sim. There's no point, it's just going to waste resources. You're never going to see it. No point in drawing it. So there's only one person, and that of course is Luke's right behind us, that is being drawn in the sim. But you'll notice here's all the information in the sim. You'll notice this stuff only updates every 5 seconds. You'll see a little update. There you go. And then you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there you go. There's another update. There's a couple fields here. The distance is being automatically calculated within my sim. The render count is just how many polygons it's drawing. So that's again automatically updating within my sim. But all this information about the location, altitude, speed, pitch, bank, heading, all that stuff is being updated every 5 seconds from VATSIM. And then when you see somebody in your sim, vPilot then interpolates between those things. That's why it needs the speed. It just says, okay, at this point in time he was here, so it just continues to draw in between. So you don't see him just go like boop, 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 boop across your screen. You see him do it one nice smooth flight because he's interpolating in between all these values. vPilot is interpolating in between all these values. The problem with that is that during maneuvers, the maneuvers are not registering quickly every 5 seconds. So like, for example, a takeoff, you're rolling down the runway, and then the next you're at field elevation, and then 5 seconds later you're at 60 feet. So then all of a sudden, boom, you jump up, and it kind of gives you a new velocity there. So the biggest difference with VATSIM Velocity that you're going to see is that this update rate is going to change from once every 5 seconds to 5 updates per second, which is so 5 frames per second. That's not enough, obviously, to have like ultra smooth, you can't even see the frame rates kind of changes. But in terms of then vPilot having to interpolate in between with what's happening inside your sim, it's much smoother. So instead of the takeoff looking like with sudden jolts, it's going to look much smoother. You're going to say ooh, and then he's going to suddenly start rotating, and you're going to see that immediately as it happens, and you're going to see the pitch change 5 times every second. You're going to see a much smoother takeoff, a much smoother landing. So in terms of the immersion of what you're going to see other airplanes doing, that's the biggest change with VATSIM Velocity, is that everything's going to look much smoother to you as an end user, especially within the sim. The controllers, not so much, because the controllers don't need to see that so much. The controllers, the whole idea behind VATSIM was, of course, controllers controlling airplanes. So in the beginning, 20 years ago when VATSIM was created, a position update every 5 seconds was fine, because that's what a radar scope normally looks like. Normally you only get a position update every 5 to 8 seconds. So that looked perfectly normal to the people to the controllers. But as our sims have improved, and we start seeing more and more aircraft at the airports around us, the pilots want to see this realistic. Yes, we like talking to the controllers, but we also like seeing the other aircraft maneuver around us. We want to see them maneuver more accurately. 20 years ago when VATSIM first started, like the kind of internet bandwidth people had right now and the server power available that we have available at our fingertips right now was not available back then. The basic premise was that it was also a bit of a trade-off between performance and precision. So in order to get like a reasonable performance on all the VATSIM servers back in the day, come on, stop wandering around the sky and just track it. Look at it wandering here. In order to get a reasonable level of consistent performance, they did an update only every 5 seconds, because users around the world would have different levels of bandwidth that they could attain and maintain, so they want to kind of maintain a fairly consistent performance. In the last 20 years, the amount of bandwidth available to the average user has skyrocketed to the point where we're all streaming multiple movies and YouTube videos into our homes simultaneously through the same pipe. The idea of even having 24 aircraft at an airport during Friday night ops, or 36 aircraft, or 4 aircraft on CTP or something, even that many aircraft being updated 5 times per second, at the end of the day, it's not that much. These are the parameters that are being updated. It's just a few numbers. Your position, your altitude, your pitch and heading and bank. At the end of the day, it's really not that much information per aircraft. And in this world of like how much bandwidth we've got coming at us, this is nothing. The other end of it, of course, is the servers that VATSIM has, and how much can they push out, 5 updates per second to the 1,000 or so aircraft that are on the network at any given time. How much computer bandwidth does that use up? So there's also that, but at the end of the day, it's definitely very feasible to increase the rate of update now. So that's the biggest thing behind VATSIM Velocity, is improving the end user experience, especially for the pilots, where we can see much smoother updates, we can see things much more readily. There are other things that are happening too. Velocity is it's a whole rewrite almost of the basic VATSIM system. So at some point in the near future, when this update happens, all the servers are going to go down for a part of a day while the new software is installed. We're all going to have to get new updated clients that are going to be compatible with this. And all of our clients should update automatically, but everybody's going to need that update to this new system. But the other thing too is that it's been designed now with a much more robust back end in mind, and that's something that you're not going to see as the end user initially, but some of the stuff that's going to come to it eventually will probably help with that. So things like improving the amount of information that you can pass along to the various pilots. So things like the status of aircraft systems, like are the flaps down, is the landing gear down, are the lights on, things like that could be passed back and forth between aircraft to make things more realistic. It's just again, like it's a much more expandable system in the back end. So that's kind of what VATSIM Velocity is all about, is improving the overall back end and also the amount of information that's being passed on to the end user to make a much more updated system. Because at the end of the day, VATSIM is now, it's over 20 years old. It's not a new system, and frankly, a lot of the technology that was developed 20 years ago is vastly outdated by the computer power that we have available to us. So I did put it in climb, right? Yeah, I did get it back in climb. Yeah, I did. Yep. So it's gonna be a good thing in the long run. It's gonna be probably a little bit of teething troubles in the very beginning, much like AFV kind of had a lot of teething troubles in the beginning. But dragging the whole network, kicking and screaming into a little bit more of a 21st century technology, and trying to make it a little bit more relevant to the future, because there's other networks that are out there right now that are sort of coming along, and if VATSIM wants to be relevant and compete with them, it needs to have technology that's on par. So certainly having a better update rate. The other thing, and I've always said it, and I still believe it, VATSIM needs better ways of distributing information about liveries, so that if I pick a particular livery to fly today, maybe a unique one, then everyone else will see that unique livery instead of seeing whatever they've got installed on their computer. And that's a much tougher nut to crack. I realize it, but I think VATSIM could do it if they wanted to, if there was some political will behind it. And you don't have to enforce it as a mandatory thing, but again, with Velocity passing along a lot more information, we can pass information about specific, what am I trying to say here? Let me just dial this back because our climb rate's decaying to almost nothing here. There you go, Mach 7.4 for the climb. Passing information about the specific livery along with your position and altitude information to other viewers, and if they have that livery available, display that specific livery, and creating a universal, maybe a universal livery tag system where every livery that's ever created gets a unique tag in the VATSIM system, so that if I have that particular unique tag livery installed, then it will show up. Then I will correctly see what you have chosen as your livery for the day. So there's stuff we could do that I think could be better, and I think that's one of the areas where VATSIM needs the most improvement is just that livery support. I think with that, it just would create that much more immersive experience. If as a controller I could say, hey, follow that Star Alliance Air Canada 320, or follow the Southwest with the Shamu on it. Very specific liveries, and other people would see that exact same thing instead of one of the random liveries from my list of Southwest liveries. So that's something that I hope that VATSIM Velocity will enable in the future. Why don't we use Guard and VATSIM? That's an excellent question. By the way, we're 36 for 37. That's an excellent question too. I think I don't know really why. I think part of it is because we just have a Unicom frequency anyways. That 122.8 Unicom frequency is not really something out that exists in the real world. The closest correlation to it in the real world is the Guard frequency of 21.5. My biggest fear, I think, and maybe this has something to do with it, maybe I'm completely out to lunch, but one of the biggest problems with the Guard frequency in the real world is because everyone's listening to it, people use it to goof off. And not everybody, a very small, minor subset of people who are listening on that frequency then use it to just start goofing off. And I wonder if VATSIM has always been a little bit afraid that people would start bringing that aspect of the real world onto the network. I wonder if that was any of the rationale behind it. I feel like there's a rule in the code of conduct about 21.5 as well, anyways, but...
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just a short message from the cockpit to let you know we have in fact reached our cruise level. We're now level at 35,000 feet.
I'm honestly not sure why we don't monitor Guard in VATSIM, but I guess really with the Unicom frequency that we have available, 22.8, monitoring Guard would be almost redundant. Everyone's on 22.8 anyways and listing on 22.8, so I think that's probably the primary reason why we don't use it. But that being said, I'm going to try to use it from now on. That being said, I don't think I actually turned it on. I tuned it in, but I don't think I actually turned it on to monitor. So let's see if I can... If I push that in, it should... Yes, now I have receive illuminated on 21.5, so I can receive anybody that calls on 21.5. But yes, in the real world, and again, it's not a large number of people, it's a very small minority number of people that goof off on that frequency. And then you get other people that tell them to shut up, and it just eggs them on even more, and it just turns into a whole big debacle, and I end up rolling my eyes and turning the frequency down because I don't want to listen to people yelling at each other about it for a long period of time. So that is part of the problem with the Guard frequency. But overall, as a system, it works because I've been lost on frequencies before. I've missed a handoff, or the controller forgot to hand us off, and I've been summoned on Guard at least once or twice. And nobody's in trouble. It's just a way of just, hey, this airplane somehow is not on the right frequency. Let's get them on the right frequency. It's not anybody gets in trouble for it. We're just trying to get through the day safely. All right. Now, what else can we talk about? Now, there's something else I want to just talk about very quickly because I thought it was interesting, and maybe you guys have some reaction to it. I literally read this morning. I thought it was a little bit interesting. It's a little interesting ethical conundrum. in a world that's full of ethical conundrums these days. But there was a court ruling in Australia that upheld a lawsuit against Google. Now I have problems with Google. Google has done a lot of good things, but they have also become way too powerful for their own good. But what happened was this gentleman sued Google and a newspaper website for defamation because they had posted an article. So there was the article, and the article was old. The article dated from like 2004 or something like that, or 2001. And it was an article about this gentleman being accused of murdering 3 people. So obviously some very serious charges. He was later cleared. In the court case, about 3 or 4 years later on, he was cleared. The original... I'm just going to pull the power back. The original newspaper article was never removed or updated. It just simply sat there archived, and Google, of course, if you search for this guy's name, eventually brought up that article. So he sued the newspaper for defamation because there was an article that said that he was charged with murder, which I don't think that's necessarily defamation because that's factual. If you're charged with murder, even if you're cleared, you were charged with it at some point. So, yes, you were charged with it. Yes, you were cleared of those charges, but that's a fact of what happened. But then he also sued Google because Google linked to that website, and the Australian courts agreed with him and awarded him damages against Google because Google was responsible for defamation because they provided a link to that website. And it really kind of... that starts to become a very slippery slope. To me, in my mind, I look at it and I say that Google is in this case doing nothing more than indexing, providing links to information. They are not providing the information. They are not verifying the information. They are just simply providing a link. These keywords can be found at this place on the internet. To my mind, it's the newspaper company that is responsible for the content that's maintained there. Google is, in a lot of respects anyways, is a common carrier. Albeit one that's run kind of by algorithms and maybe has a little bit too much power, but they're basically a common carrier. They just simply provide ways to access the information, to get to the information, but they neither publish nor verify the information, as it were. But the High Court, the Appeals Court in Australia disagreed and said, no, Google is partly responsible for the defamation by just even providing this link. So then does Google have a duty to go and validate every single website that they link to and remove links to websites that they think are inaccurate? For a search engine, that becomes a very slippery slope because that's the gateway to censorship right there. And where do they stop with that? I disagree with that ruling myself. Like I think that the court erred. Okay, so Squibbly says, I think probably has to do with the intent of the action. Was a link generated to an article, or did someone in Google actively go and post a link intentionally? I don't know the whole background of that story. It sounded like Google's defense was that they didn't remove the link because they felt that this was a newspaper company. It was considered a reputable source of information, so they did not feel that it was necessary for them to remove the link. It was up to other people to read the story, perhaps determine the validity of the story, up to the newspaper company to determine the validity of the article that they were publishing. Google did not feel it was their job to determine the validity of the article. It sounds like it was probably an automated link because it sounds like it was just a link to a newspaper article, one of probably millions of links to newspaper articles that Google has in their search database. Millions, billions probably, in their search database. They index almost everything automatically. It used to be, people submitted URLs to their websites, but nowadays, especially for like a newspaper site, Google will index everything on that site automatically. They'll visit it every day, see what new articles are posted, and index those as well. So maybe it was done intentionally, but the way Google functions nowadays, and this was, again, like the original article was published 15, 20 years ago, maybe that was different back then and they were still manually inputting a lot of information, but at this point in time, and then, Squibbly also says, isn't Google considered a news source in this instance? Aren't there protections to news platforms reporting factual information from a suit? That depends. I think that depends a bit on the country. But yeah, like is Google responsible for the news? And this is also a bit of a problem that Google has because they are providing direct links and often hosting the news content themselves that other people are publishing. Do they become the publisher if somebody else has written it, but then it's sort of hosted through their site, through their Google News site? That also is an interesting conundrum. And certainly the second you start kind of publishing the information on your own URL, but to me, like a hyperlink is very rarely an indication that I have published this information. It's more just here's where you go look for the information. So, it's like a card catalog in a library. Do you sue the library because they have a card that links to a book that's written about someone that perhaps portrays them in a negative light? I'm sure there's plenty of books about every president in the last 100 years. That some of them are probably positive, some of them are probably negative. So, do you sue the library because they have a card in their catalog that points to this book? That's kind of the way I look at Google's search engine. That is the trouble with Google, though, being such a large multinational corporation now that does so much more than just a search engine. They do so much that it's like they host so much information on their own servers sometimes. They're no longer just a search engine. But I still like the whole idea of them being responsible for censoring which websites are shown in their search results. I often have a problem with that. I think people need to kind of make their own decisions about what information they read and don't read on the internet, but I have a real problem with requiring the search engines to remove links to that information altogether. That censorship is kind of hard to overcome and hard to determine where do you draw the line then. It's a bit of a challenging thing to try and police the internet in this way. Should have been a lawyer. I read it this morning and it really kind of caught me as like this doesn't sound quite right. And maybe I don't know all the details of the case. I only read a short article about it, but the idea behind it, anyways, I have problems with it. But it brings up another case that came up on Google this week, and they won a case. Where it was actually on YouTube. So it was Google, obviously, as their overarching master fighting this case. But it was a Google content creator had created reviews of a whole bunch of anime films. And this one particular anime company sent like 140 takedown notices to this one guy for him reviewing their films. It's a Japanese company, and in Japan, the fair use exemptions to copyright and trademarks are much smaller, much narrower than they are in a lot of other countries. So what would be considered fair use in the United States, I think where this guy was based, versus in Japan. In Japan, the company had every right to request that they remove the links because it was their property, and even like the fair use exemptions didn't apply in this case. YouTube actually stepped up and fought for this guy because they disagreed, because so much of their content is people reviewing other products, not necessarily playing the product, word for word. I'm not showing you the whole movie, but I am going to show you clips from the movie as I review it. And the court case that basically the court case basically determined that when a takedown notice comes in, that takedown notice is only applicable to users in that or to viewers in that country. So the viewers in Japan cannot watch this guy's videos because they don't adhere to the fair use policy in Japan, but because they adhere to the fair use policy in the United States, the viewers in the United States can still watch this guy's videos. Because part of the problem with this worldwide network is we fall under a whole patchwork of different laws. Different countries have different laws, some of them more permissive, some of them more restrictive. How do you, as a content management website, whose laws do you follow? Do you follow the laws of the content creator's country? Do you follow the laws of the country where your company is founded? Do you follow the laws of the country where the original copyright holder is based? Whose laws do you follow? Really kind of a difficult thing to sort of. I don't even know that there's necessarily the right answer to it. For me, as a YouTube and Twitch content creator, I feel like they kind of struck a nice balance between, okay, well, we're going to adhere to that principle in the country where that guy was, but we're not going to get him in trouble. I mean, he was at risk of his channel being shut down because he had all these he had all these copyright strikes submitted, and so he actually stopped producing videos for months because he was too stressed about all these copyright notices that were sort of hanging over him. That he didn't even create any content for months because he wasn't sure if he could do it anymore. So I think Google struck a nice balance between the rights of the copyright holder and as an aside to this, that copyright holder apparently is quite well known at YouTube and Google for being a little bit heavy-handed with their takedown requests and often going way overboard with way more requests than probably are necessary. Oops. But that being said, like Google was trying to follow the law and trying to figure out a compromise to the law. So I thought that was an interesting case. Now, what if I made and posted my review in an airplane at 37,000 feet? Well, at any point in time, you're in somebody's airspace. You're in some country's airspace. So I would say you probably, if you're making something within that airspace, you're applicable to the laws of the country you're in at the time, or your home country if you choose to post from there. Then you get into international waters, and it's a whole other kettle of fish. So we certainly live in an era with a lot of interesting ethical conundrums based on just the fact that we have, on the internet, borders that are not nearly as cleanly and clearly defined as they have been in the past, and content is shared so easily across borders in most cases that it's very hard to sort of not run afoul of somebody's laws. I mean, I have to worry about that as a content creator. Like, here I am, I'm displaying a lot of views of the CRJ. Do I claim I produced it? No, I absolutely did not write this software. I like using it. I like showing how I use it, and I think it's a fairly fair use of it. But there might be some countries where that might not even be considered fair use, like doing a review and showing some external and internal shots of the airplane might not be considered a good fair use policy. So it certainly raises a lot of interesting questions. A lot of stuff we take for granted as creators, on YouTube and Twitch. Some of the things we take for granted, certainly, in a North American centered worldview where there's a lot of kind of fair use exemptions to copyright. We can't take that for granted. We need to always think about the fact that, we're just a couple of takedown notices away from getting our channels shut down. I've never gotten one yet. I hope I don't get one. But they have a 3-strike system. It wouldn't take a whole lot for somebody to submit a couple of claims, and you've got a chance to kind of appeal. But at the end of the day, so much of this is run by algorithms and not by people. You have to wonder, are you going to be able to talk to a real person and appeal to a real person and get a reasonable course of action from a real person, or are you just going to be stuck with what the algorithm says? Another case in point, here's a really crazy thing that happened just this last week, but there was a professor who received a copyright infringement notice from Google for files stored on his Google Drive. And all these files that were stored on his drive that got these copyright infringement notices, they had a single number in the file, and that was it. He was I believe he's like a computer science professor, and he was writing various programs just to sort of demonstrate programming concepts. They just simply would output simple numbers into a file. And so he literally had a file with the number 1 in it, and that was all that was in the file, and that was considered copyright infringement. Somebody somewhere had copyrighted that file. Now, I don't think anyone really actually intentionally copyrighted the file number 1. It just simply in an automated system. It was just simply copying an automated system, and he was even in the email. It even said that this copyright infringement notice is not up for debate, is not available for review. So he didn't even have a chance to review it. That file was simply locked down, and he was not able to access that file anymore. And not that it really matters because it's just an output from a sample program. But it was, how can you? This is the world we live in, where there's so much information out there, and everything is run by algorithms, and you never have a chance to talk to a real person and try to get this real person to figure out that this algorithm, the conclusion this algorithm reached, was completely unreasonable. And there's no room for debate. You can't reach out to real people in these companies. It just simply, you're just subject to the whims of the algorithms they create. And if there's mistakes in the algorithms, you live with it. On a similar note, Chicago Tower. That's a Chicago Tower? Nice, nice. All right. Did you know there's another Sky Harbor Airport in Northbrook, north of Chicago? Phoenix, Chicago. Yeah. I had no idea there was another Sky Harbor Airport, but yeah, does Phoenix hold the copyright on Sky Harbor? And how long do they hold the copyright on that name, the trademark on that name? And if that Sky Harbor Airport existed before the one in Phoenix was named Sky Harbor, then does the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport have a claim to that? If they can prove the airport was named that in Chicago before the one in Phoenix was named, then they don't have a claim. Trademark and copyright can be a very tricky issue sometimes to kind of run. You know, it's one of those things. You know, trademark infringement sometimes is very hard to kind of say that this infringes a trademark or not. Interesting ethical conundrums. Anyways, I don't want to wax on them too much longer because I think I think we've probably talked about them enough. I didn't think we were going to settle this, but it certainly raises some interesting debates about certainly fair use, free use, and certainly the world that we're currently living in, run by these giant corporations that are run by nothing but algorithms created by programmers that nobody actually ever interacts with them. Anytime you try to create a rule, there's always going to be an exception to the rule. And anyone who tries to give you a rule that's an absolute, they're just going to end up in trouble. There's no such thing as like I find very hard to believe that there's ever such a thing as an absolute rule. There's always going to be an exception. And if you try to write a program with absolute rules, you're always going to run into problems because there's always going to be reasonable exceptions to everything. Okay, information Chicago, information hotel, 248.5, 10 miles, broken 33, broken 55, minus 12, minus 17, 3021 on the meter. Set that now right here. There we go. Arrivals expect the ILS 27 center, 28 center approach, simultaneous approaches. Echo hold shorts, departures expected to left, 28 right, number 5. Today's facility procedures in effect. Advise you have information hotel. Alright, so looks like we're landing west in Chicago. We'll start setting that up in a couple of minutes here. Let me just pull up the charts here and just have a look at the star. You know what, we'll set it up now and then we'll talk about anything else that comes up here in a minute here. So let's, what am I doing here? Chicago, show me Chicago. Thinking about it. Lots of charts in Chicago. Nope. Try it again. Sometimes it just needs a little kind of push. There it is. Alright, so we're doing the Benki 6 arrival. We're going to plan the ILS to 28 center because we're kind of coming in from the south more than the north, so we'll plan the southern of the two runways. We'll throw up the taxi charts. There we go. So are there any altitude restrictions on this arrival? There are altitude restrictions like crazy on this arrival. So let's just have a look and make sure we've got them all in there. There we go. The one nice thing I love about having these charts integrated into the sim is that when I go and press buttons on the FMS, it doesn't... I used to have to drag the browser window over, and then as soon as I press a button in the sim, the browser window would disappear. Behind the sim. So now I love this here. So it's really easy to kind of follow this stuff. Let's see here, legs. So we got Riley's the first restriction here. 240 and above, Beaver 220 and above, bylaw 230 to 200, and then Benki at 12,000. And then the rest of these are at 12,000 for some reason until we get to Vogler, because there's a Vogler restriction 12,000. That's fine. That's fine. As long as we cross Benki at 12,000, that's the main restriction. So we'll plan on that. So that's already in there. So our top of descent point, which I just see coming up there on the MFD, is looking pretty good. So that's fine. Let's see here. How are we doing fuel consumption wise? We got 83 left in the tanks. Progress showing 75. We arrived at Chicago. That's probably not realistic. Showing an hour till Chicago. What's our fuel burn right now? Fuel flow per hour. Right now we're doing 32. So we'll probably have about $5,000 by the time we land in Chicago. That's a pretty good estimate. Alright, so let's go and just check our ZFW here that came up with 56 plus another 5 grand means we're going to land at about 61.6, so we'll use 62,000 numbers for landing. So let's just pull those out. Just give me a second here. I'm just going to grab my CRH landing card here. 65, 64, 63, 62. There we go. 62,000 pound numbers. So we're looking at clean maneuvering 179. Something I might try here. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to. I knew I would mess that up. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, now it's getting sunnier and it's getting harder to filter out that green screen again. Darn it. Yeah, see, it's getting way too sunny in that corner. How can I filter out that green screen a little better without filtering out myself? If I turn... I'm just trying to mess with the levels a little bit and see if I can find something. What is going on here? Hitting a couple of turbulence bumps there. Take this off here. See, and I don't know how to make this any less bright. Because unfortunately I'm getting sunshine coming in this room. Then it just screens out me. I don't think I'm going to be able to do anything about that, which is kind of annoying. Just too bright. Alright, give me 1 more second. I'm going to try one more thing here. This room's almost too bright now. Alright, I have one more thing I'm going to try just to get rid of that stupid... It's too bright. Just that one corner is becoming too bright, so the other thing I can do is eliminate that corner. Or at least remove most of it. I really hate that when the green screen stops working on me here. Anyways, we're going to get set up for this arrival. What I was trying to do was I was trying to find this, just a notepad so I can actually write down my speeds course, I also need a pen for that. Let's see if I can find a working pen and maybe some scissors, because I cannot seem to open a plastic notepad because I'm going to write down my speeds because I'm tired of trying to remember them. And in the real airplane, most of the time you get them printed out from the ACAR system. The ACAR systems have a lot of have automated performance data. You'd actually get you just print out what got sent to you from the ACARs, and you'd have all the speeds on a sheet of paper. All right, so 62,000 pound numbers, and I can just literally stick this on my screen, so I can just glance at it when I'm doing it here. So let's see here. 163, 157, 151, 47, and VREF of 129. There we go. So I got my speeds all written down. I'm just going to put this right here on the corner of the screen so it's ready for me to just glance at when I'm doing the approach here. Alright, so we got some speeds. Let's get the rest of this approach all set up here for 28 center. And yeah, the first star that gives altitudes in Chicago. You know what? You're absolutely right. It's one thing that blows my mind about a lot of the stars in Chicago is they don't give altitudes. And it's like, this is why? What's the point of having a star? Because I've flown to Chicago many times. They give you the exact same altitude restrictions every single day. Most of them anyway. So the one that actually where you enter the terminal depends on whether you're doing east or west. But again, you could put an east or west choice on here, but the early ones in the star, they're the same every day. So why are the altitudes not on the star to begin with? Like, that's just one of those things that sort of blows my mind. I'm like, why? Why not? What is the harm? If they don't say descend via, they're not valid. But then they could just say descend via. So I just don't get that. It's not a mentality, but it's just I don't understand why Chicago is like one of the few major airports in the United States that doesn't take advantage of publishing altitudes on most of the stars. So 108.95. So this is 28 center we're planning on. 108.95 inbound course is going to be 273. So let's see here. Let's do this really quickly here. Center the heading bug. Go into heading mode for a second. Change to Loc 1 and set the course to 273. And I can't actually see 273, but what I can see is the tail at 093. There we go. Back to nav, back to FMS mode, re-engage the nav, and nobody's the wiser. Set 273 on the FO side as well. Put it right across the E there. 1, 2, 3. Done. Alright, so that's set up, The minimums for this approach we're going to need, let's see here. I swear I did this one just yesterday. 851, 860. 860, I didn't actually do this one yesterday. But we did kind of have an interesting day yesterday in Chicago. Anybody that was watching the weather in Chicago yesterday, it was a pretty nasty day in Chicago. It was snowing, and it just wouldn't stop. And it was snowing pretty hard at times. They had a couple of inches of snow on the ground by mid-morning, which was not really in the forecast, but it was just some lake effect snow off Lake Michigan that just sort of set itself up, and it just kept on coming. It just would not stop. They were not able to keep up with it at the airport. They actually, we were about to turn final, and they said, yep, no, that's the last runway, and they just closed it, so there are now currently no runways open in Chicago. And we're like, okay, well, now what? And they're like, what? I don't know. I'm going to give the guy's like, I'm going to give you a vector for vector to waste some time while we figure it out. And about 6 or 7 minutes later, they reopened a different runway. They were working on the runways constantly, but they just were so far behind the two airplanes that had landed previously on the runway that we were setting up for, which I think was 27 center, I think it was. Then 2 airplanes in a row reported poor braking on the runway, and they're like, no, we can't do that. So they closed it, and then they were plowing. Then they started plowing. They were plowing the other ones at the same time. So then they finally cleared off 28 right. Was it 28 right? I think it was 28 right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 28 right. And we did a very very short taxi in from 28 right. But yeah, they were having a real hard time yesterday in Chicago keeping up with the weather. It just was snowing constantly. Yeah, I'm already coming at the top of drop in about 60 miles here. So let's get this briefing out of the way, and then we can chat on the way down with anything else that we want to talk about here. So let's do this. Actually, let's do this. Let's pull this up here so we can compare them again. So yeah, so we're going to start off the speeds. I've already got all posted on my screen here. We're doing the Benki 6 RNAV arrival to Chicago, plate 20-2, and effective on the 30th of October of 2020. Sorry, effective the 5th of November of 2020. I've never done this arrival before, so radars required, RNAV 1, DDR, GPS required. We got all those. Cash in drams, nope. Landing east, nope. So none of the rest of those notes apply. And we're already established on the arrival here. We're on our way from Keokuk to Drams. After that, we're going to cross Riley at or above 240, Beeford at or above 220, Bylaw between 20 and 23, Benki at 12,000, then Newark, Ashton, PETA, and then for the 2.8s, we're going to do Monks, and then Tony. And then vectors around for the ILS to runway 28 center. So this is on plate 21-16, the 5th of November of 2020. Let's see here. So the Loc IVZE-10895. I do believe I set it both sides. Oh, sorry. Just make sure. 10895, 10895. Yes, 273 the inbound course. We've also set that both sides. The glide slope at Seika 2300. Wherever it is there, 2300. And Cat 1 minimum's 851. I've got 860 set. Yep. Airport elevation is at 680. So I guess we can give this one more click on the cabin knob there. So 680. Yep, there it is. And minimum sector altitude around the airport reference point is 3,400 feet. The missed approach is straight ahead 1,100 feet, then climbing left turn to 4,000 on a track of 215 and intercept the 082 radial 262 track to the DuPage VOR. Yeah, 215, 202 to DuPage VOR, and hold from Vogler. We're not going to do this from Vogler. Simultaneous approach is authorized. VGS ILS glide path not coincident. No notes on the plan. It is a 3-degree glide slope, Happy's left, ALSF2 lighting system. And RVR, minimum RVR for the Cat 1 is 1,800 feet or 1/2 mile. Let's see here. So that's that terrain. Landing in Chicago. It's going to be convenient. Right turn off the runway. We're going to taxi to a gate. I don't have a gate, so I should probably get one. I'll grab it in 1 second. But it'll be as instructed by the tower. We'll have to cross to 8 right to get to the apron. Weather is it's VMC in Chicago. It's not terrible right now. And operational, no MELs, no TAMs. I'm sure there's still some closed taxiways. I don't know if I want to read the no TAM list for Chicago because that just goes on for pages and pages and pages. Actually, not too many closed taxiways. Missing signage in some spots. Centerline lighting missing. 28 center. I don't see any no TAMs for 28 center. Approach procedures. We have a lot of ILSs that are not valid because of 5G interference. We can talk about that. That's always fun. Yeah, no real no TAMs affecting the arrival. And fuel Detroit requires... Where's my flight plan here? Detroit requires 4,400 kilos. At 76, we're expecting to land with about 5. So yeah, no, that's fine. We should have sufficient fuel for a go-around and hold for a few minutes, at least 10, 15 minutes. And that's all I've got. Top of descent is right there. Okay, we're coming up to it pretty quick. Any questions? No questions? Love it. This thing. As this room gets brighter, as the sun kind of comes around, I find my track IR has worse and worse time tracking here. Yeah, it's a pretty nice day in Chicago. What do I usually fly? Are you asking routes or types? Because routes, it's kind of all over the place. I do a lot of Northeast U.S. and then domestic East Coast. And I'm doing more and more domestic East Coast and less U.S. It's actually kind of nice, not cross the border all the time. And it's not that it's really much of a hassle for flight crews, but it is still a little hassle, so sometimes it's just nice to do domestic flying, not have to even clear customs to go to the airplane. You just walk into the airport, walk to the airplane, and away you go. It's kind of nice. Yeah. So there is a NOTAM here, and you guys have probably seen this in the news, and it's been talked about to no end, but it is here, and it is, if I can find it again here, here it is. Let me just pull this up here. So this is the NOTAM here. So all of these ILSs, procedure, and there's even more of them here, so it's a two-part NOTAM. Procedure not applicable except for aircraft using approved alternate methods of compliance due to 5G C-band interference, plus the airworthiness directives 2021-23-12 and 2023-13. So all of these approaches are no longer valid unless you have an aircraft that's been approved for the 5G interference. So what's going on with all this stuff? And I was explaining this to our flight attendants the other day because somebody asked me a question. And it's basically what it comes down to. I'm going to go ahead and set 12,000 here. Basically what it comes down to is the radar altimeters. So most of you swimmers are probably pretty familiar with what the radar altimeter is, but for anyone that doesn't know, basically it's a little tiny transmitter that's on the belly of the aircraft. It's one of these ones here. I feel like it's going to be the ones back here. But it's a little tiny transmitter on the bottom of the aircraft that sends out a signal straight down that bounces off the ground and then is received by another antenna right next door. And using the time it takes to hit the ground and come back, an aircraft can measure very accurately how far it is above the ground. The biggest limitation to this situation is that it's got a limited range. So generally most aircraft, it's not considered effective above 2,500 feet. The distance is so far that it starts to lose its accuracy. But the closer you get to the ground, the more and more precise it becomes too. These radar altimeters send out a radio signal at a very specific frequency. I forget exactly what it is, but in the United States, there was recently an auction for some new cell phone frequencies for the companies to use that are very close to the altimeters, to the frequency that is sent out by radio altimeters. And so what happens is the cell phone towers that are sending out these signals, the radio altimeters can get them and they can get erroneous signals. They can think that these are the responses they're supposed to be getting from their own transmissions, so they can show the wrong altitude above ground. And they're not actually at the same frequency, but they're very close, and so a lot of these radio altimeters were, manufactured and certified 20 years ago or more, were not designed for interference from bands as close as these ones are operating. And the biggest problem is that the ones that are operating in the United States are extremely close, are extremely powerful. So everyone says, oh, they've been using them in Europe for 5 years and nobody's noticed any big problems in Europe. Yes, that is true. However, as I said, the ones that they're planning to use in America, and they have started to use in America now already, the transmitters are much more powerful than the ones that they're using in Europe. Oh, for crying out loud. Getting too much sunlight in here. Much more powerful than the ones that they were using in Europe, so that's why we're getting some interference. Okay, stop. Track IR, stop. Keep pressing the wrong button here. There we go. I'm just going to leave it like that without track IR turned on for a minute here. What was I trying to say here? Yeah, so the ones that they're using in the United States are much more powerful than the ones they're using in Europe. So it hasn't been necessarily demonstrated that there will be interference, but there is a technological potential there. It is a potential, and of course aviation is a very risk-averse industry. We really do not want to do anything that increases the level of risk. So if anything increases the level of risk, we tend to try and avoid it. So basically what they've said is that any procedures that require the use of the radar altimeter will no longer be allowed anywhere where there's potential interference from these cell phone towers. which is most of the major cities in America, which of course is where most of the major airports are located. So Chicago being a prime example. And you'll see that the list of approaches that are no longer authorized is mostly the special authorization Cat 1s and the Cat 2 and Cat 3 approaches, along with certain other RNAV approaches as well. Usually the RNP RNAV approaches are also being disallowed because the Category 2 and 3 and even the special authorization Cat 1s all require the radar altimeter for the actual determining of when you've hit minimums on the approach and when you have to do your go-around. So because the radar altimeter is no longer able to be reliable at these airports, they can no longer do these approaches unless it's been proven that these aircraft are okay on these runways. So basically the default action is we're going to ban these approaches unless the manufacturer can prove that the airplane does not suffer from this interference. So a lot of aircraft manufacturers have been doing a bunch of testing lately and have said, yes, our aircraft actually is not affected by this. But in some cases it may even be runway specific. In our case, for our aircraft, it's runway specific. They've tested the interference at certain runways and they say, yes, you can use these runways, and you can do Cat 2 approaches on these runways but not other ones. So for example, in Chicago, our company actually lists which runways we can do. We can do the 27s, but we can't do the 28s. So we can land 27 right, center, and left on a Cat 2 for those that have the Cat 2, but we can't do the approaches to 28 right, center, and left Cat 2 because we have not been tested for interference, or there is too much interference on those runways. So it's become a real headache for a lot of people, a lot of operators, not being able to do approaches in Category 2 conditions. That's going to be a huge problem. Especially now that it's winter, and of course we've got a lot of bad weather going on all the time. Yeah, and even in the summer when you start to get those foggy days or whatever, certain operators are going to be more affected, certain aircraft are going to be more affected, but we're all having to jump through hoops trying to figure out, okay, which approaches are we allowed to do, which approaches are we not allowed to do. It's just one more level of complexity that's been added to the industry now that's just adding to the workload on a busy day. So it's been a little bit not frustrating to deal with, but it has been a little frustrating to deal with. It shouldn't be this hard to do, this hard to figure out whether or not we can do these approaches. But like I said, it's become very challenging. The FAA and the FCC are in heavy disagreement over whether or not these concerns are valid. The FCC thinks the FAA is overreacting. The FAA is like, why is the FCC not listening to us? And it's creating a whole big mess. And I think the two agencies are a little bit of a competition to see who actually has more authority in the American government. And I don't think either one has more authority. They both have equal authority. They both have sort of separate but connected areas that they have to regulate, and they have to work together. Instead of trying to compete with each other and try and figure out who has the ultimate authority, they need to work together. Canada, it's not so much of an issue. Transport Canada and Industry Canada work together, and Industry Canada said, yep, when we sell these bands, we're going to have specific areas around airports that are excluded from being able to transmit on these C-bands to prevent interference. And Transport Canada is like, yeah, that's a great idea. I can't remember. I think Transport Canada probably came to them, and Industry Canada agreed and said, yeah, no, that's fine. We definitely think that could be a problem, and we're going to mitigate the problem. But yeah, in the U.S., unfortunately, it's created a really big headache. Scully wanted to know the type of aircraft. I only fly one type of aircraft in the real world, and that's the Embraer. I do not fly the CRJ in the real world. I don't fly the Dash in the real world. I just fly the Embraer. But it's a good airplane. It's one that I really wish came to the sim. I think it's a really good one. And I think there's a good one in X-Plane, but there's not a good one in definitely not in MSFS, but not even in the P3D world. There was a lousy one in the P3D world. Field Air did a really kind of... It wasn't terrible. Their FMS was actually... like you could see they put a lot of work into the FMS, and the FMS was actually not bad. But then the modeling on the inside of the airplane was terrible. It was just terrible. It was so clunky and blocky, and it looked... the textures were so... they had the switches there, but it was just so low quality. The texturing and the modeling was so low quality. It made me sad every time I got in it, so I stopped flying it. And it also had it was prone to crashes. If you didn't set up the FMS in the exact order that they thought it should be done, it tended to crash. And being familiar and fluent in that FMS, I knew multiple ways to get everything done. So I was very used to doing that. Like, sometimes I'll set it up in this order, but sometimes, depending on the information I have in front of me, I might set it up in a different order. And I would, what am I trying to say here? And I was used to that. I was used to doing things different ways, different days, depending on what the situation demanded. But the way the field there FMS was set up, you couldn't do it different ways. You had to do it their way, and that was it. So it was a little frustrating. Descent info and see what it's planned here for a descent right here. For some reason, it thinks our next restriction is at Riley, so that's very useless to me. Seems like we're pretty much on the path anyways. White star going down there, so that's good. Well, yeah, exactly, and that's exactly right. More critical when it's your aircraft. Well, I know that aircraft so well, so I know exactly what it should look like, and the FMS was not bad, actually. The FMS was not bad, but it was just sitting in the flight deck, and it was so blocky, and there were texturing problems, and then they converted it to P3D version 4, and they created a huge texturing problem, and I don't know exactly where it came from, but on the inside of the cargo door, when you'd open the cargo door, you'd see the aircraft's, the logo from the side of the fuselage on there again, and it's like, how are you guys publishing software that's got so many bugs in it? Do you not have like a beta testing period going on here, was my thought. It felt like it could have used a lot more effort in the texturing department. The system was not bad, and the FMS was not bad at all. It was pretty good. But it also, yeah, it tended to crash a little bit if you didn't use the FMS the way they wanted you to use it. If you didn't follow the flow that they had programmed it with, then it would crash. So I stopped flying it because it was kind of crash prone. Nothing ruins a simmer's day like a sim crash. Oh, all that work, and now we're gone. You know what I should have done? About 20,000 feet ago, I should have done the descent check. So let's just do this here. 3021 on the meter. $3021. Alright, let's see here. Descent check. Landing elevation, again, is set. Fuel, checked. We got 71 still in the tanks. TCAS is set to below already. Radar is, I mean, we could put it on. I don't think this draws anything on the screen. CAS is checked. Landing data is set, and approach briefing is complete. The descent checklist is complete. That actually brings up an interesting point too. I was reading about an article. The Asobo development team had a live stream developer Q&A this past week. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a part of it. And then I read some of the summaries and made some interesting points. One of the things that they're kind of considering for the longer term for their roadmap is opening up the API for weather and terrain within the sim, which would be great because that's one thing that's sort of again, one of the developers, I can't remember who it was, but they made the comment that so much of what they have to do in the sim could be done in the sim, but it's locked away. There's no APIs to access a lot of the information that is buried within the sim, so they often end up having to create things external to the sim themselves, having to write their own code external to the sim, their own software external to the sim, to try and get the sim, to try and get the aircraft to work the way they want it to. And so typical examples, weather radar would be one, where you're trying to get information in the sim, out of the sim, into your aircraft. And another one would be terrain drawing on the screen here. So terrain awareness system, TAWS, on the screen here. The terrain is all here. This is all a database that's stored within the sim. And you've probably seen it on their G1000, G2000 synthetic vision systems that they have. What am I trying to say here? That they have, like, all the runways and everything you see in the sim drawn on the synthetic vision system. So the information could be used by the airplanes, but the third-party developers can't access it. So they were talking about in the long-term roadmap, they're talking about opening up an API, and it's not that they're going to do it; it's that there's something that they're contemplating, they're thinking about. But opening up an API so that external programmers, third-party developers, can access the weather radar, so find the precipitation within the sim and display it on in their aircraft, and also terrain as well. Be able to have a GPWS terrain interface API that they can then draw terrain on the screens here in the aircraft, so you can see the terrain coming up, the high terrain, the low terrain coming up on the screen. So I think that'd be really useful. I hope that they get the ability to do that, because I think that could be a really useful thing for the sim. And again, it's mostly a case of not reinventing the wheel. Oh, stupid track IR. It's almost too bright in this room now. I can't even make it reset now. There, I'm just going to do that for now. It's getting too bright in this room. The sun is kind of coming around, and I'm getting too much interference with my track IR. Yeah, so that'd be good news. The biggest thing is just trying to remove the duplication of effort. You know, every developer is developing the same things, and they want the same features. They want weather radar in their aircraft. They want terrain awareness system in their aircraft. So every developer is starting to do the same thing. Why not create an API that all the developers can pull this information out of the sim, instead of everyone having to create their own external terrain database with their own terrain, their GPWS system written into their own aircraft alone? Why not create an API that all of them can then draw on, so that they don't have to have as much interference? So I think Asobo's sort of starting to really listen to some of their big third-party developers, because it seems like progress is slowly being made, but it's not fast. It's definitely not fast. But hopefully we'll get there. Alright, I'm going to, let's see here, we'll descend to 10,000 here. And then we'll keep it up at a high speed until we get kind of a beam. The airport will start down a little lower. Looks like there is a little bit of cloud still over Chicago there. It was funny because, like, yesterday it was just such a relatively isolated pocket of lake effect snow. Milwaukee was wide open, VFR. But Chicago was like up and down. Like, there were points where they were saying the RVR was basically, I think the lowest I heard was an RVR of 1200 at one point. So it was kind of up and down all morning, just as the sort of pockets of snow would roll through and then they'd roll out again. But then you got like 10 miles away from the airport, it was screaming VFR. Much like this. Clear over there, IFR over here. Although in this case today it's not so bad in Chicago. Yeah, so if we get to 10,000, we'll be 10,000 here, and then we'll kind of turn onto this downwind here, and then as we get a beam in the field, we'll start a descent. And honestly, I've lost track of how far behind us you are, so I'm just going to go look here. Just looking up. Yeah, not too bad. You're probably about, looks like 15 miles behind me, give or take. Probably visible on the TCAS. Yeah, Tower 2075, thank you. I'll put that in the backup right now. We'll grab that as returning final. Good idea, though, because it tends to get busy on final, so thank you. Yeah, let's get that in there now, so we're ready. Alright, so there goes Austin. PETA next. Kind of lose a little bit of speed here. Let's get it. It's going to keep it at 290. Oh, for crying out loud, you stupid. Keep it at 290. Might be a bad time of day to stream now. Early in the morning, just because, or not early in the morning, but kind of mid-morning. The daylight starts interfering with my track IR a lot. And I've turned it up to kind of maximum value, but it's just not enough to kind of overcome. I wonder if I turn on another light source, if that might help track IR become a little bit more consistent. But no, it's very much, see, it's all over the place. It doesn't know what it wants to do. Alright, so we're level 10,000. We're going to follow it in just to pretty much till we're beam the field, then we'll start our descent down below 10,000. me away, and then you just got a nice airplane to look at. It is just such a nice model. Like, the modeling is so good in this sim compared to previous sims. And it's not just about the modeling. I mean, the handling of the aircraft and the handling of the systems is also important too, by all means. But it just makes it so nice to look at. And that alone really can add to the immersion factor. Alright, back in the flight deck. It's enough playing around for now, but we're almost there. Be on the ground in about 10 minutes here. That will terminate Season 6. Meemaw, I know. I always love that fix as well. I see it. I see it all the time when I go to Chicago, and I wish I was clear direct Meemaw. Alright, any other traffic in Chicago? They're having a busy morning in Chicago. We got 7 aircraft on the ground in Chicago. Let's just see how this model matching's doing, because I just, now that I've got AIG working, I really like checking up on it. And it looks like we got almost everything looks good. The only one that's not kind of correct is the Challenger got switched to a CRJ 550 private registration. Otherwise, everything else looks good. We've got a Delta Neo, we got a JetBlue 320, we got a Delta CRJ. Get that even wider so I can actually read these things. Oh no, that's the maximum width, I guess. United Airbus 320, Boeing 777. Well, it's a 67, but that's pretty close. 321, 737, American 737. NKS, it doesn't know what NKS is. I don't even know what NKS is. Brickyard, DC6, so it went with a DC6, so the model matching is definitely working really well nowadays. Alright, that's probably close enough to the airport. Let's get slowed down and then we'll go down. So let's set a lower altitude here. We got the power off as soon as it's finished decelerating to about 250 here. To get to 0, I was going for about 6,000 here. Usually we get 6,000 on the down one, so I'm going to go 6,000 initially. And then VS minus 1,000. I bet you that's Chicago getting all mad that I'm not talking to them yet, but I'm like, you're a tower controller, so you have no authority over what approaches we're doing here. Alright, let's set 250 there as the reference point so we can see it nicely. And, oh no, Chicago Center's online. 2035, Chicago Center. Crazy. That's just when I thought we were going to get nothing.
103 squawk 1353. Squawk 1353.
Chicago Center, hello. It's SkyWest 3115. We're through 87, descending for 6,000 right now. Information India, and we've got 28 center planned.
3115. Good morning. Squawk 1305.
Squawk 1305, SkyWest 3115. That was nice. Select the right thing there.
Your voice is breaking up.
Okay, make sure we're paying attention here because we're losing speed.
Okay, I guess that's 2560 squawk 1341.
Nothing worse than coming online on VATSIM and as a controller and everybody's calling you for the first 10 seconds.
15 beta contact 7,000, descend maintain 4,000.
Alright, descend 4,000, SkyWest 3115. You stupid.
Chicago Center, hello, Delta 9.
Track IR.
Level 350.
Delta 962, hello, squawk 1337.
4,000 set.
1337, Delta 962.
And we
Chicago
should
Center, good day, Delta 222, out of 10,000 for 6,000.
Cannot get this thing to turn to save my life. I think I'm just going to have to go with using the mouse. 'Cause it's
377
just not working for me. Let's get the Carol anti-ace on while we're at it here.
Flight level 210, maintain level 370.
Because it's just becoming untenable. So I'm just going to use the mouse for a little while because I just can't deal with that jumping.
2550, radar contact 14,500, descend maintain bar 11,000. Information. India.
And you know what we didn't do? 10,000 feet. Lights.
Expect out to itself.
Lights. Seatbelts are on.
Delta 222, radar contact 8,000, descend maintain 7,000.
Descend maintain 7,000, and we have a new cloud.
Okay, expect to hit center.
Alright, kind of expedite that descent a little bit there. Make sure the heading bug is synced.
38 low, radar contact 3,000, kilometer maintain, flight level 350, turn right, heading 090. Guys, 3115, turn left, heading 300, join the runway 287 left 5.
Left turn 300, join the 28 center localizer, SkyWest 3115. Not having track IR is really annoying though. I'm so used to using it. Heading 300. And that's 5 descending 4. Let's do inbound to what is that there? Arzuko.
Southwest MP14 with you at flight level 380.
See if I can get it to go 273 inbound to Arzuko. The intercepts usually don't work, but that's okay. Execute. And that gives us something to look at anyways, and we're going to go ahead and set the nav source to the ILS. And
3115 is 4 miles from Hazel, 5 miles from Hazel, maintain 4,000 till stop shuttle of Mars and clear ILS from a 28 center.
4,000 till established, and cleared the ILS 28 center, SkyWest 3115. Alright, for some reason this course looks backwards to me. It looks like it was set to 93, when it should have been set to 273.
Southwest MP14, squawking 1363.
That's somehow I set it backwards, but that's okay. So we're cleared for the approach. Let's arm the loc and glide slope. Perfect. Yeah, look, we can see what's going on outside now. Alright, I'm going to try track IR again, because without track IR, it can be very difficult to try and do stuff quickly. Oh my god, you're still doing it. You're the worst. Alright, let's go flaps 1.
Contact 5,000, turn right into your man, your climb maintain level 370.
It's going to be very close to kind of intercepting both the loc and the glide slope at the same time. Let's get the speed back just a little bit more here.
November 19er 49er Delta 7000 over Oshkosh CFR.
Alright.
What's your request?
We're IFR over Oshkosh, Chicago Midway inbound.
Loc.
And,
Perfect. We got just in the nick of time. We got the loc just before the glide slope, which makes life a lot easier.
1342, 49er Delta.
JetBlue 1106 cleared right to.
Any second now, the glide slope's going to come in.
Northbrook.
There's glide slope. Go around altitude is set. Let's go flaps 8.
Got 15 contact out, right?
Over to tower now, SkyWest 3115. Good day.
Delta 222, descend maintain 4,000.
When you're able to verify squawk 6253.
Yep, we're showing 6253 in the box for us. Is that an issue on your end for 408?
That's 408. Yeah, it should be good now. You can contact departure 120.35.
135, you have a double on the 408.
O'Hare Tower, good morning, SkyWest 3115 on the ILS 28 Center.
SkyWest 3115 O'Hare Tower. Good morning, wind 230 and 8, runway 28 center, cleared on.
28 Center, cleared to land, SkyWest 3115. Now, you know what I didn't do?
American 1301.
I said I was going to do it.
040, runway 28 right, at November 5.
Was I did not find a arrival gate, so let's try it and really quickly find one here. For the latest SkyWest flight, Golf 19. Alright, Golf 19 it will be. Alright, let's go gear down. Flaps 20. That'll put some drag on there really quick.
Take your seats for landing. Thank you.
Arm the thrust reversers.
Tower Republic 1, are we expected to hold short at
Flaps 30.
or November 5?
And our ref is 29 plus 5, let's say
Republic
34.
1, full length. Republic 1, runway 28 right, full length, line up and wait.
Full length, line up and wait, wait right, Republic 1.
And flaps 45 before landing checklist. Flight attendants are advised. Passenger signs are on. Stable. Flaps are 45. Sorry, thrust reversers are armed. Landing gears down and flaps are 45. The landing checklist is complete. There we go.
One, turn right heading 040.
Runways in sight. Try to get myself comfortable. Hope my track IR does not glitch out halfway through this arrival here. Still getting slow on the approach here.
Clear for takeoff, 2H right, and after departure, 040, Republic 1.
American 1301, contact.
Disengage in the autopilot. Let's just see if we can get this just a little higher so it's on the... Yeah, you son of a bugger. I was afraid you were going to do that.
American 1301, contact.
Now we're on the slope. We're on the glide slope, but we're not on the poppies, and which is exactly what it said. Glide path and poppies not coincident. Yeah, it looks pretty realistic. It's a snowy day in Chicago.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
It's down there somewhere. Caught a little gust there, I think, as we touch down. Would be nice if my track IR worked a little more reliably.
SkyWest 3115, continue straight ahead of Papa, Delta Delta, hold short runway 28 right at Delta Delta.
Okay, Papa and short 28 right at Delta Delta, SkyWest 3115.
SkyWest 3115, where you parking today?
We're going to Golf 19. Alright, so Delta Delta should be the first right turn here. And then we have to figure out where Golf 19 is. So we need the taxi, the parking gate chart as well. So this should be Delta Delta right here. It is. And Golf 19 is, there it is. Alpha 14 entry by the looks of it. Okay. Alright, Alright, so let's get the landing lights off, the strobe off for now. Tax light off while we're holding short of the runway. Oh, you stupid track IR. I don't know what you're doing here, but it's driving me up the wall. And I want to be able to do stuff here, but... Alright. Pressurizers off. Alright, and after landing check, APU is staying off for now. Transponder staying on. Flaps are up. Lights and strobes are all as required. The probes are off. After landing check's complete. Alright. We're holding short 28 right at Delta Delta. I don't see anybody on the runway. But
Delta 222, we're established. 28 center. Delta 222, our tower, wind 230 at 8, runway 28 center, clear to land. Thank you.
Chicago Tower, Republic 1.
Oh, there we go.
Airborne, passing 1000.
it's the DC-6, no less.
Sky 3115, cross runway 28 right at Delta Delta, taxi Lima, Alpha 10 Bravo.
Okay, cross 28 right, Delta Delta, Lima, Alpha 10, and Alpha to the gate, SkyWest 3515.
Republic 1, turn right heading 0.
I don't know what is going on with this track IR lately, but
040.
clear left, clear right. I can't even... Should get strobes on. I can't even do anything. And it works fine until a certain point of the day. It's just there's too much light in this room. If you can believe that. We went from being such a dark room to too much light. Alright, so...
Republic 1, contact departure 120.35.
Let's grab the chart for Lima.
035, thank you.
Alpha 10 Bravo to the gate. So Lima's the second turn here, so we'll clear the runway, get the strobes back off again. There's the sign that says Lima, so we're going to turn right here, we're going to go to Bravo, and back we go. It's a pretty good model of a DC-6 even. Going by there. Keep the speeds reasonable on the snowy taxiways. Gosh, it's just driving me nuts with that track IR. It's always been very reliable for me, and it's just this last little while where it's really started to do this, where it's just... Yeah, it's the time of day. There's the sun hits this room at a certain angle. It probably won't even be such a problem as the year goes on and the sun gets higher in the sky, but it just hits this room at such an angle that it makes so much interference, I guess. The track IR sensor just can't figure out where the heck my track IR is. Alright. But we're getting there. Now, I'm pretty sure that's you on final there, Squibbly, over there. And 18 knots. Taxi speed, it's okay. Pull out my charts again here just to make sure I'm not getting lost. Kilo 3, then it bears to the left, Alpha 10. It becomes Bravo. Then we have to make a right turn on Bravo. I lost you. I don't know where you went. You were on final, and I had to look where I was going, so I lost you. Let's look at where we're going here. But actually, this makes for a really neat external view, too. Odd to taxi from this angle, but Kind of makes for a neat way to look at the aircraft. It's United over there. Alright, so this is Alpha 10. This is Bravo. It's the outer taxiway, so we're going to turn here and go around to wherever our apron entry is here, ramp entry. And let's see here if we pull up the parking gates. For Golf 19, looks like we're going to want to enter Alpha 14. So keep an eye out for Alpha 14 as we go here.
Delta 222.
So that's Alpha 11.
Straight ahead on Papa, cross runway 28 right at Delta Delta.
Continue ahead on Papa, cross runway 28 right on Delta 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 222.
Alpha 12. Almost there. And there it goes. Okay. Alright, let's fire up the APU because we're going to... The gate is really close to the... APU is on, or APU is open, so let's start it. Alpha 14, so this should be Golf 19 right there in the corner. I hate you, Trek IR. I'm hating you right now. Really hating you. It seems to find it if I kind of move my head a little bit again, so that's why I think it's just an interference issue. Golf 19 should be one of these ones. It's right here on the corner or close to it.
No, 225 or tower, 35 by 500.
Tower, figure out which gate it is here. Oh, Track IR, just stop.
No, 225.
Golf 19.
28 right, or
it's supposed to be this one right here at the corner.
Yeah, 225, runway 28 right at November 5, taxi via Bravo, Bravo 1, November. Bravo, Bravo 1.
Had to stop because I couldn't even see where I was going. Why am I not going anywhere now?
Tower Delta 222 is clear, 28 right Delta.
Delta 222, taxi to parking, Lima, Alpha.
It's like a lip in the scenery or something.
Lima, Alpha 10.
Oh my god, this is turning into a very annoying stream here. I've hit this before where there's like a lip, like right there. And your wheels get stuck in it. And the aircraft can't move any further until it gets over the little hump. Alright, this is Golf 19 Alpha. It's not quite the one we want to be at. We want to be at that one, but anyways. I didn't see a sign, and there's all that stuff parked at Golf 19, so we're going to take Golf 19 Alpha. Taxi light should be off. The APU should be available. It is. Let's just check our positioning here. Just a little further up for the CRJ. Come on, move. Move, you stupid airplane. It's like it's like it's in rough terrain or something too. I think this might be marked incorrectly as like rough terrain because it's taking all the power I have just to get the airplane moving onto the gate here. So there might be some. I might have to talk to FS Dream Team about that because it seems to be like a little bit of an issue there. That being said, I haven't run an update here for a while. So, parking brake is set, the APU is available, and tried to turn the taxi light off before. Just trying to get this to idle because they won't pull off if I don't have them at idle. There we go. Alright, seatbelts off. I'm sorry, I'm getting exasperated with the stupid track IR to drive me up the wall. Beacon. No steering off. Let's call for the jet bridge if we can here.
With doors to manual, please.
Let's go aircraft. Let's chalk it. Let's open the door.
Aircraft is secure. Please open doors. Thank you.
Alright, and shutdown check. So parking brake is set. Seatbelts are off. Thrust levers shut off. Anti-ice
Ladies and gentlemen, from the
off.
cockpit, once again, I hope you enjoyed your flight with us today. On behalf of
Now it's
myself,
off.
the first officer, and the cabin crew,
Fuel pumps are off. Beacons off. Nose wheel steering switch is off, and the transponder's going to standby. Well, it was mostly a good flight, except for just the track IR at the end there. Drive me absolutely up the wall. And that's it. Shutdown checklist is complete. We are done. Let's just check this out. No more schedule. Our schedule is done. We don't have a current flight. We just have nothing right now. So the world is kind of our oyster. We can try to do another SkyWest schedule, or we can try to switch to another airline altogether. Did I open the wrong door?
You're coming in broken there, but when 230 add
Somehow I opened the service door.
28 center clear on.
Anywho, here you come. Here we are, and we are done. The final leg of Season 6 of A Pilot's Life is completed. My self-loading cargo is just about done offloading the passengers. We're going to get a report soon. I think the landing was a bit too smooth. 100 feet per minute is the target, so if I do less than 100 feet per minute, then they think it's too smooth. It was a pretty smooth landing. But, yeah, that's it. I'm just a little flustered when the sun hits your room like a big pizza pie. I'm just a little flustered. That was just getting very annoying because it just was not quite working reliably. And normally my track IR is such a good, reliable system. I take it for granted now. And it's funny, these things that they start off as not a gimmick even, but just as a not something I'm used to using, and then they just become an essential. And then when they don't work, so frustrating when it doesn't work properly. So it's not a perfect system. Or I may have to find different times of day to stream when I don't get as much sun coming in the window. But in the meantime, that's it. We are done. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that stream. It was lots of fun, except for the track IR issues at the end. Nice snowy morning here in Chicago, or afternoon here in Chicago. But there we go. I think I might use this. I'm just going to remove myself from this for a minute here, and this could very well be the screenshot for the trailer. But Squibbly, thank you so much for flying with us. I hope you had fun too. For everybody watching, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope you learned something as always. I try to keep the conversations interesting as we're going here. Find some neat stuff to talk about. And yeah, stay tuned to the Discord. We're going to have definitely an ATC stream later this week, and it might be a week or two before I get another aircraft stream in. Next weekend might be a little bit busy, and after that I have some pretty busy work weeks, so we may have to work a little harder to try and find a schedule that works for the next flight. But we will definitely work something out in the next week or so for another flight, probably in the CRJ, but this time not so much in the SkyWest colors. We might just take out the Canadian Express colors and just do some cross-country touring of Canada. But in the meantime, stay safe and healthy out there, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys all real soon out there on the VATSIM skies. Take care.